Hello and welcome to World Panorama, your weekly roundup of the top stories from around the globe. I'm Tracy Shilshi, and let's start the show with the headlines. Diplomatic row between Germany and Turkey escalates. Berlin sharpens its policy towards Ankara in response to jailing of journalists and human rights activists. The new tone, along with an increased travel warning, met with outrage in Turkey. Donald Trump's healthcare bill dies in the Senate. President suffers heavy defeat and passes the buck yet again. Says he is upset that Democrats did not work with him on healthcare. White House confirms Trump and Russian President Putin had an undisclosed meeting, but Kremlin denies any secret meeting on the sidelines of the G20 summit. U.S. security experts say the meeting may have damaged American interests. And guilty verdicts for Rohingya trafficking deaths in Thailand. Court in Bangkok convicts 62 people in human trafficking case. Former Army general among those sentenced. Our top story, tensions between Germany and Turkey have escalated further, with Berlin warning its citizens and firms that they face the risk of arbitrary arrest in Turkey. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan also raised the stakes, dismissing the threat of an informal German economic embargo and rejecting calls to release several German citizens held in Turkish jails. Here are more details. Germany's government has warned companies against doing business in Turkey and issued revised guidelines for travelers as Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel announced a reorientation of policy towards Turkey. People traveling to Turkey for private or business reasons were also urged to exercise increased caution.
Unfortunately, I can't see any kind of readiness on the Turkish government side to go on this path with us, which is why we in Germany will be forced to take a new direction in our Turkish policy.
This came a day after Germany summoned Turkey's Berlin ambassador to protest against the arrest of 6 human rights activists. These include a German citizen, Peter Stüdner, and Amnesty International's Turkey director, Ideliza. Peter Stüdner and the others were arrested on the grounds that they were part of a terrorist organization.
Accusations of connections to terrorist organizations are obviously far-fetched unless one wants to quantify Amnesty International and other human rights organizations as terrorist. That's absurd.
Watching developments closely, the European Union on Thursday said that Turkey's arrest of human rights defenders, journalists and opposition is alarming and called for their immediate release.
We find this as an alarming news that continues a deeply worrying pattern of imprisonments of a large number of journalists, human rights defenders and members of the democratic opposition in Turkey. We call for the immediate release of these people.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan launched a huge purge of state institutions after rogue military officers tried to topple him a year ago. More than 50,000 people have been arrested since the failed coup, including more than 170 journalists and many opposition politicians, academics and activists. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. All right, for more on the developing situation, we've got in studio JAYANT Jacob, who's a senior assistant editor at the Hindustan Times. JAYANT, thanks so much for being here with us. Like we're just pointing out, of course, this back and forth, like you're saying, it's been going on for a while now. Germany, of course, putting in some of these restrictions. But Turkey really standing up as well and hoping that Germany backs down. But this time it doesn't seem to be that way.
That's right. I think a couple of things here. This is going on for a year since the crackdown on the protesters by Turkish president. And also the position which the German Chancellor has taken against Turkey's plan to join European Union as a full-time member. So these things were brewing up for a while. Now the arrest of this human rights activist and some of the efforts by the Turkish government in Germany, like they want to hold meeting just ahead of the referendum of the Turkish origin people.
Yes. And
also they were trying to swoop over Turkish Germans there, etc., escalated the situation. And also considering the fact Germany is going for an election within a couple of months, and the kind of ultra-nationalist waves you see in patches even in Germany and across the world, I think the situation will continue to remain for some time now.
And also, yes, you're pointing out, of course, how elections are, of course, crucial, and because of that, perhaps Germany is not going to be backing down. But for Turkey, how much does it have to lose? We do understand that it may perhaps not lead to a total breakdown of relations. But if actually trade does get affected, that would mean a lot for the Turkish economy.
I think that's right. For example, if you look at the trade figure, almost 21 billion is the Turkish trade with Germany from the Turkish side only.
And Germany is the biggest partner as far as trade is concerned.
And also more than 3 million tourists visited from Germany to Turkey last year.
Yes.
Tourism is one of the major source of income for Turkey. And also at the same time, Turkish companies employ more than 200,000 people in Germany.
Yes.
And also this relationship goes a long way back. And apart from the strain in recent times, and if you take the history of last 100 years, by and large it was a peaceful relationship. For example, most of the workers, all these immigrants who came to Germany, they were invited by the then West Germany after a shortage of labor after the Second World War. Then West Germany, they came and settled, etc. But what is happening now is that the way Germany is threatening Turkey, economic sanction, travel, almost like a travel advisory, that is going to hurt Turkey. But at the same time, the way Turkish government is going about its ultra-nationalist positioning and posturing, I think they will also not be in a position to back off, because some sort of a revival of Ottoman Empire is the dream of Turkish president. And anything which is seemingly seen against that and buckling under pressure from Germany. Germany is symbolically important. For example, that is the biggest European power in terms of economic power.
Absolutely.
If you can stand up to them, I think that will strengthen Erdogan's image. I think he's also getting into that as well. But for the economic aspect, I think Turkey is stand to lose. And also when it comes to a two-way kind of a trade, and also Germany will also have some kind of suffering to undergo. But by and large, it will be a loss for Turkey.
All right, all right. So it's an ideological stand on Germany's part if you look at it in a larger context, of course. And you're saying Turkey, of course, trying to really position itself, you know, taking on the big one, you know, at its head. It's, you know, that's the kind of perception at least it's trying to create. But, you know, as far as the European context is concerned, the fact that, you know, Turkey has been trying to enter the EU, you know, and if you look at it, Germany, of course, you pointed out too, it is a big power. So, you know, nobody is, of course, going to question it and its importance as well. But as far as Turkey goes, especially till the last year, it was important in terms of, you know, the migration crisis. But do you think now it seems to have dwindled down, at least its importance in that front?
That's right. For last 1 year, Germany wanted Turkey more than Turkey wanted Germany when it comes to stemming in the migrants, etc., etc. That situation is no longer there. But if you look at the trade war, not war of rhetoric rather, which is going for some time, German position has never been consistent on this. If you look at Helmut Kohl, when he was the chancellor, he was supportive of it. His successor was not so supportive of allowing Turkey to be full member of the European Union. Then German Chancellor Angela Merkel never completely defined what is her position on Turkey's full membership to EU. And Turkey at the same time said nothing short of a full membership they are interested. So I think it's going on for some time now. But at the same time, the fact that Germany doesn't need Turkey when it comes to stemming in immigrants the way they needed them 1 year ago, I think that will embolden German positioning. At the same time, Germany is also going for an election. Any country, any government in power which has to face an election 2 months down the line, 3 months down the line, cannot take a light stand on when it comes to matters on nationalism. That's the global trend.
Nationalism, human rights, and that is, of course, a topic which has been, you know, it's come up as a recurring topic in elections, whether it's the US, whether it was even in France as well. Just very quickly, where do you see this going? Do you think at least till elections of, at least German elections, this is a topic that is going to continue simmering?
I think so. As long as Erdogan continues to keep his nationalist position, as long as there is an election in Germany to be completed, I think the situation will more or less remain the same.
All right. Jayant, Jacob, thank you so much for joining us, giving us details really of what we are seeing, at least at the moment, as far as those relations between Germany and Turkey are concerned. And here on Rajya Sabha TV, we'll be tracking all those developments on that front. Meanwhile, let's head on to the other big story that, of course, took place this week, the Trump-Putin friendship. It sparked off yet another controversy with reports that the US president and his Russian counterpart had an undisclosed meeting on the 7th of July. Trump slammed it and called it fake news, but the White House did acknowledge the meeting and contended that it was brief. But that's not where it ends. The White House confirms Trump spoke with Putin through Russia's translator, which means that the US has no record of the meeting. Here are more details. This was a meeting of all G20 leaders on July 7th, where President Trump is seated near Japanese President Shinzo Abe and his wife, while First Lady Melania Trump is seated next to President Putin. And midway through that dinner came the undisclosed meeting, which until 18th of July, no media organization was told about. The second conversation between Trump and Putin took place during this dinner, said Ian Bremmer, the president of political risk consultancy Eurasia Group, who was first to report the meeting in a note to clients. Bremmer said Trump got up from his seat halfway through the dinner and spent about an hour talking privately with Putin, joined only by Putin's own translator. The discussion came after their scheduled 2-hour-long bilateral meeting earlier that day.
Never in my life as a political scientist have I seen two countries, major countries, with a constellation of national interests that are as dissonant, while the two leaders seem to be doing everything possible to make nice and be close to each other. Like that's what people don't understand.
What got critics upset was confirmation that Trump did not use his own translator, as each country was only allowed one, and Trump's translator spoke Japanese. Analysts say this is a potentially serious problem because Putin now has the only record of the meeting and is free to use it or distort it for political gains. Trump's decision to effectively wing it during his hour-long meeting with Putin at a social dinner wasn't simply a casual choice by President Trump. It effectively means the US has no record of what was discussed, what was disclosed, or what was promised. But Russia does, and that gives Putin a major advantage in his future dealings with Trump and in his ongoing PR war with the US. Responding to these reports in a tweet late on Tuesday, Trump said, "Fake news story of secret dinner with Putin is sick. All G20 leaders and spouses were invited by the Chancellor of Germany. The press knew," quote unquote. He also said the fake news is becoming more and more dishonest. Even a dinner arranged for top 20 leaders in Germany is made to look sinister. The Trump administration was widely criticized for the first meeting between Trump and Putin, at which Trump appears to have accepted Putin's denials of any US election interference at face value, even though the entire US intelligence community believes the Kremlin mounted a sophisticated campaign to help him win the White House. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. And staying with the US, the Republican Party's efforts to repeal and replace Obamacare was fatally wounded in the US Senate on Tuesday. Two of McConnell's Senate conservatives announced that they would not support the latest version of the bill. The current development gave a big blow not only to Republicans who have rallied against the law for years, but also President Donald Trump, who strongly opposes the former President Barack Obama's health care law.
In yet another setback to US President Donald Trump's long-promised efforts to revamp Obamacare, two more Republican senators announced their opposition to the legislation on Tuesday. Just hours after the Senate was called back into session, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell was handed two more public defections on his health care bill. Senators Mike Lee and Jerry Moran said they could not support Majority Leader McConnell's legislation in its current form. In response, Trump said on Twitter, Congress should immediately repeal Obamacare and start from a clean slate on a new health care plan. Last week, Senate Republicans already lost the votes of Senator Rand Paul and Susan Collins after McConnell released the bill. With Senators Mike Lee and Jerry Moran also joining the opposition, McConnell no longer has enough votes to pass a Republican health care bill. It was the latest in a series of health care setbacks for Republicans, despite their control of both chambers of Congress and the White House. However, Republicans argue that Obamacare is a government overreach and costs too much money. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And with that, a time for a short break now, but still ahead. After years of suffering, Myanmar's Rohingyas get some justice thanks to a Thai court. A court in Bangkok hands 62 people, including a former army general, sentences for human trafficking. That and much more ahead.
I think they're ready to surrender.
आईएनए की बागी फौजियों पर अंग्रेज देशद्रोह का मुकदमा चलाएंगे।
उन तीनों के बचने के चांसेस कम हैं।
ये कोई आम केस नहीं, कोर्ट मार्शल है। बोला भाई, एक केस आप कांग्रेस के लिए नहीं, सुभाष बोस के लिए लड़ी।
Lieutenant Gobak Singh Dillon, Captain Shah Nawaz Khan, Captain P.K. Sehgal. Section 41, waging war against the king. You are charged with murder. Do you plead guilty to the charges read out?
ईमानदारी से आजादी के लिए लड़ने वाली अगर कोई फौज है तो उसका नाम है आजाद हिंद फौज।
The safety, honor and welfare of your country comes first, always.
British Indian Army hand you over to the Japanese Imperial Army.
हिंदुस्तान और अंग्रेजों के बीच एक धागा था, वो टूट गया।
इस बार कुछ ऊपर नीचे हुआ तो देश में बवाल मच जाएगा। अब जनता किसी अंग्रेज को नहीं छोड़ेगी।
रात दिन अपने सीने विच वजदी आजादी दे राग नू बंद कर ला।
अंग्रेजी अफसरों ने साडी हिफाजत नहीं की, तो वो हमारी वफादारी के हकदार किस तरह हो सकते?
आज हिंदुस्तानी फौज के पास अपना असली मकसद है, हिंदुस्तान की आजादी।
तुम मुझे खून दो, मैं तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा।
ये मुकदमा पूरी इंडियन नेशनल आर्मी का है।
क्योंकि हमने वो दिन देखा है जब हमें ऐसा लगा था कि हमने हिंदुस्तान को वाकई आजाद कर दिया।
देश की आजादी की लड़ाई कोर्ट में लड़ी जा रही है और इस वक्त पूरा देश एक साथ तैनात है।
This trial and its judgment shall be remembered throughout history.
Welcome back. Now, over the past few years, there have been several reports of Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi being killed. But each time, there has been no confirmation. In June, Russia claimed that al-Baghdadi had been killed in an airstrike by its forces. This was followed by what appeared to be a statement from the Islamic State confirming his death. But now, a top Kurdish counter-terrorism official says that the IS leader is definitely alive.
Just a month after the Russian Defense Ministry claimed that Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi had been killed in its airstrike, the confusion over his death continues. Now, a top Kurdish counter-terrorism official has said he was 99% sure that the Islamic State leader was alive and in fact living south of the Syrian city of Raqqa. Lahore Talabani reminded everyone that al-Baghdadi's roots go back to the Al-Qaeda and he knew what he was doing. Talabani claims al-Baghdadi has been hiding from security forces quite well. The US has refuted reports of his death, saying it does not have concrete information about the Islamic State leader's death.
Finally, there's been a lot of media interest in the whereabouts and status of ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Despite all the helpful reports to us from every source imaginable, I'm unable to confirm or deny where he is or whether he is alive or dead. Let me just say for the record, my fervent hope is it is the latter.
Iraqi security forces recently ended 3 years of Islamic State rule in the city of Mosul, and the group is under growing pressure to do the same in Raqqa, the only remaining stronghold of the terrorist organization's self-proclaimed caliphate.
it'd make me feel better to know that he was dead. I suppose it probably doesn't really matter. If no one knows if he's alive or dead, someone is guiding ISIS, the organization. And what we've seen with all these paramount leaders is you take them out and someone else steps up. So if he is dead, that means someone's running ISIS, and I think that they're trying to keep his death quiet for their own morale.
The Syrian Observatory of Human Rights also recently confirmed that al-Baghdadi has died. But as the US general says, it will take a lot more for the organization to die. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
An army general, 2 provincial politicians and police officers were among 62 people out of a total of 103 defendants found guilty on Wednesday by a judge in Thailand's biggest human trafficking trial. The trial, which began in 2015, had been marred by allegations of intimidation of witnesses, interpreters and police investigators. A Bangkok court took more than 12 hours to deliver its ruling, which rights groups said showed the government was serious about convicting the perpetrators.
A former Thai general has been sentenced to 27 years in jail for human trafficking at a landmark trial. Manas Kongpon is among more than 60 people convicted in Bangkok of trafficking Bangladeshis and Rohingya Muslims, a minority fleeing Myanmar. Another top former official was sentenced to 75 years in prison. More than 100 defendants were on trial.
The court has convicted 63 defendants out of a total of 103. 40 defendants were acquitted.
Rohingya Muslims have been fleeing Myanmar for years, paying smugglers to help them escape. The arrest of the general in June 2015 was seen as a part of an effort by Thailand to close down a human smuggling route through the country. The judge found him guilty of human trafficking and organized transnational crime. A former head of administration in the southern province of Satun, Kotong, received a sentence of 75 years in prison. Several other defendants were handed jail terms of similar length. Sentences ranged from 4 to 94 years.
I'm not happy with the verdict. My brother was implicated in the case. He was beaten by police into admitting to the crime. Now, as he tries to tell the truth, the court did not listen to him but upheld police evidence.
In 2015, thousands of refugees were left stranded at sea as they tried to escape through southern Thailand and onto Malaysia and other destinations. The crisis escalated after international pressure forced the Thai authorities to crack down on the smuggling networks. This led to smugglers abandoning the refugees, leaving them on their sea and land routes with no neighboring country willing to take them in. The current trial was sparked by the discovery of mass graves of refugees in jungle camps near the Thai-Malaysian border. A senior policeman who led an investigation into human trafficking in Thailand, Major General Paveen Pongsiring, fled to Australia fearing his life was in danger from influential figures implicated in trafficking in his country. Most of those indicted in the case are from Thailand, but several citizens of Myanmar and Bangladesh are also being held.
I think the Thai government has been taking human trafficking case very seriously. There were generals and high-ranking officials being convicted, which sends a clear message to those who are involved in the trafficking people.
The Rohingyas, a distinct Muslim ethnic group who are effectively stateless, have been fleeing Myanmar for decades, with Thailand, Malaysia and Indonesia the most desired destinations. While they say they are descendants of Arab traders who have been in the generations, Myanmar's government insists they are not a genuine ethnic group, but rather Bengali migrants. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
At least 2 tourists have been killed and hundreds injured after a powerful earthquake shook the Greek islands of Kos and Turkish coast on Thursday night, triggering a small tsunami. Here's a report.
A powerful earthquake struck the Greek island of Kos on Thursday night, killing at least 2 people and injuring more than 100. The deceased were tourists from Turkey and Sweden. They died after the walls of a bar broke apart and crashed down on revelers. The injured included people who were underneath a building that collapsed. The epicenter of the 6.5 magnitude earthquake was approximately 10 kilometers south of Bodrum in Turkey and 16 kilometers east of Kos. The earthquake triggered a small tsunami that caused flooding in Bodrum and parts of Kos, damaging historical sites, buildings and roads. Ferry services were suspended due to damage at Kos's main port, leaving dozens of tourists to camp outside their hotels. Services at the airport were also hit, with people unable to leave the island.
Oh, it was terrible. We lie in bed and our bed shaking from the left to the right, and our hotel was going, everything was going crazy. So we went down and everywhere was water, every stuff was broken, glass on the floor, bottles on the floor, everything.
The only thing that's more or less negative is that we don't receive any information about incoming flights, outgoing flights, etc. And of course, we're all stuck in the heat. Fortunately, we're getting a little bit of water once in a while.
In the Turkish city of Bodrum, dozens of people were injured as they tried to flee the quake. More than 20 aftershocks were experienced through the night. The army has been called in to help emergency services. However, there were no reports of any casualties. Turkey and Greece sit on significant fault lines and are regularly hit by earthquakes. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And finally, Chester Bennington, the lead singer of Linkin Park, died on Thursday, aged 41, after committing suicide. The singer died on the birthday of Soundgarden's Chris Cornell, his good friend, who also killed himself in May this year. Bennington's untimely death prompted people from across the entertainment industry to share their shock, sorrow and tributes. I'm now leaving you with one of his songs to remember him by.
So if you're asking me, I want you to